أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان الرجيم. I seek refuge in Allah. He is the all-hearing, the all-seeing, the all-capable, and the accursed devil, Iblis Lucifer. And I begin in the name of Allah. He is most gracious, the most merciful. I send much salutation, abundant praises upon the Prophet of Allah, the selected one, the Prophet of Mercy. This is your humble and respectable orator Muhammad Israel, picking up on page number 129 in reference to the legendary military ideology of the Prophet ﷺ, after completing various series or various videos to the series, including the legendary military career, the Madani period, as well as the legendary military legacy, the era of Abu Bakr as-Siddiq radiallahu anhu, also the legendary military governance or government, whichever you choose to go with. This is the era of Sayyidina Umar ibn al-Khattab, and the legendary military nation, legendary military empire of Rasoolu'Allahi ﷺ, the era of Sayyidina Uthman bin Affan. And now we're picking up in the legendary military ideology, the era of Sayyidina Ali ibn Abi Talib radiallahu ta'ala anhu. 1.8.14, Az-Zubayr's eagerness that his debt should be paid off when he died. And this is in reference to the aftermath of the Battle of the Camel. It was narrated that Abdullah ibn az-Zubayr said, open quote, on the day of the Battle of the Camel, Az-Zubayr left instructions that I was to pay off his debts. He said, open quote, if you have any difficulty in doing so, then seek help from my master by Allah Jalla Jalaluhu. I did not understand what he meant until I said, oh my father, who is your master? He said, Allah Jalla Jalaluhu is my master. I never had any difficulty paying a debt, but I would say, oh master of Zubayr, pay it off on his behalf, end quote. And he paid it off. The debt that he owed was that a man would come to him and give him some wealth as a trust. But as Zubayr ibn al-Awwam radiallahu anhu would say, no, rather it is a loan. For I fear that if it may be lost. When he was killed, he did not leave behind any dinars or dirhams, but he had a piece of land. I sold it and paid off his debts. The sons of Az-Zubayr said, share out our inheritance. I said, by Allah Jalla Jalaluhu, I will not share it out among you until I announce for 4 years during the Hajj season. If anyone has a debt owed by Az-Zubayr, let him come to us so that we may pay it off. He made this announcement every year during the Hajj season. Then when the 4 years had passed, he shared it out among them. Az-Zubayr had 4 wives, and each wife got 1,200,000. This total sum of his wealth was 50,200,000. Allahu Akbar. The report of Bukhari is to be understood as referring to the total of his wealth at the time of his death, which is different from the surplus that was left 4 years later. There was a great deal of blessing in his estate, and Allah Jalla Jalaluhu blessed his land after his death. His debt was paid off, and his wealth increased a great deal. From this story, we learned a number of lessons. Well, I have to concur. These are the type of things that make us very, 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 very jealous. Ali ibn Abi Talib, for the right reasons, envious for the right reasons. In his sermon early on in the series, he says to the meaning, or open quote, we should say, paraphrasing what he said, do righteous deeds and your offspring will be taken care of. Righteous deeds, the deeds that Jalla Jalaluhu is pleased with, and they are in accordance to the example of Muhammad Alayhi'Ssalam. Otherwise, they cannot be righteous deeds. Paying off your father or your loved ones, your recent loved ones' debts is very noble, and to want to make sure that the debts are paid off, was something that he took dear and near to his heart. It was a righteous deed. He wanted to do it so that when he met Allah Jalla Jalaluhu, he would not be in debt to anyone else. And also the fact that his son, Abdullah ibn Az-Zubayr, took the matter very, very seriously. For 4 years he's announcing while the surplus is there. It's really, we're hoping, inshallah, Allah Ta'ala, as of, our intentions are pure. We are reading the stories of Sahaba, and we come across this type of narrative. We definitely hope that Allah has mercy on us to bestow us to where we are also leaving behind righteous deeds that our offspring are taking up and pursuing, to where others who come across it later on will hope that they would also be in such favors. May Allah Jalla Jalaluhu accept. Az-Zubayr said to his son, "O my son, if you have any difficulty in doing so." So these are the lessons. Lesson A. Az-Zubayr said to his son, "O my son, if you have any difficulty in doing so, then seek help from my master." This is an example of his deeply rooted certainty and strong faith that resulted from sincere trust in Allah Jalla Jalaluhu and turning to him to meet his needs and relieve his distress. The true believer firmly believes that everything is in the hands of Allah Jalla Jalaluhu. If he finds himself in hardship and distress, the first thing that crosses his mind is Allah Jalla Jalaluhu and how he dominates and controls everything. Those created beings who may have some connection to his situation are also in the hands of Allah Jalla Jalaluhu. Their hearts are in his hands, and he directs them as he wills. So the believer turns to Allah Jalla Jalaluhu before anyone else and asks Allah Jalla Jalaluhu to meet his needs and relieves his distresses. Then he follows the principle of cause and effect that Allah Jalla Jalaluhu has made a means of reaching the desired results, while believing that they are no more than means and that the one who does and decrees things is Allah Jalla Jalaluhu alone. He Jalla Jalaluhu is able to cause the means to have no impact so that they do not lead to the usual results. Allahu Akbar. And more, by the way, and more. B. Was Az-Zubayr ibn al-Awwam a wealthy man? From the text above, we see that Az-Zubayr was not one of the wealthy who were known for their wealth. Instead, he felt a sense of hardship and was concerned about the trust and debt that he owed. He was afraid that his land and property would not be sufficient to pay off all that he owed. This text also shows us that Abdullah ibn Az-Zubayr, like his father, was expecting that the debts would be more than the wealth and land. When his father asked him, "Do you think that what we owe will leave anything of our wealth?" Abdullah could not answer him if he was expecting anything other than what his father was expecting. He would have given him an answer to put his mind at rest at this critical moment, to tell him that the matter was different from what he thought and was expecting. However, he went along with his father in his expectations. When Az-Zubayr ibn al-Awwam suggested seeking help from his master, Abdullah asked, "Who is your master?" expecting him to mention some individual whom he could ask for help. Excuse me. No one can claim that Abdullah was not aware of his father's wealth or did not know about his property, because at that time Abdullah was 35 years old, and a man that old is a great help to his father and knows all about his situation and his wealth, especially if he is the oldest son. Az-Zubayr questioned to his son, "Do you think that what we owe we leave anything of our wealth indicates that Abdullah was aware of his father's situation and finances. Indeed, Az-Zubayr ibn al-Awwam stated that the matter of paying off the debts was not easy. He said, Allah Jalla Jalaluhu is my master. I never had any difficulty paying a debt, but I would say, O master of Az-Zubayr, pay it off on his behalf. And he paid it off. Allahu Akbar. Those of us who are in so much, we should have known earlier to keep oftenly repeating, oh, the master, you master of ours, pay off our debt. Very simple, very simple. And it's from Az-Zubayr ibn al-Awwam, who is one of the companions given glad tidings of paradise. Another sign that Az-Zubayr was not regarded as one of the rich and wealthy, and that what he expected with regard to the amount of his debt in comparison to his wealth was correct, is the fact that Hakim ibn Hizam, radiallahu anhu, may Allah be pleased with him, the paternal cousin of Az-Zubayr, met Abdullah ibn Az-Zubayr and said to him, open quote, I do not think that you will be able to pay off all these debts. If you are unable to pay any of them, come to me for help. A fourth point is that Abdullah ibn Ja'far, who was owed 400,000 by Az-Zubayr, came to Abdullah ibn Az-Zubayr and said, if you wish, I will leave it for you. Abdullah ibn Zubayr said no. Abdullah ibn Ja'far said, then if you wish, you may leave it and pay later than others. This is a testimony that two of the senior companions expected that the property of Az-Zubayr would not be enough to pay off all the debts that he owed, and that they regarded him as one who needed help. Moreover, those who were close to Az-Zubayr ibn al-Awwam radiyallahu anhu were aware of his situation. One of them was Hakim ibn Hizam, Az-Zubayr's paternal cousin. The other was his maternal cousin, because the mother of Az-Zubayr was Safiya bint Abdul Muttalib, the paternal aunt of the Messenger Alayhi'Ssalam, and he used to deal with him, giving and taking, borrowing and entrusting. These 4 points constitute evidence that about which there is no doubt that Az-Zubayr ibn al-Awwam was not, in fact, a wealthy man. There were many rumors about the wealth of Az-Zubayr ibn al-Awwam, how rich he was, and there was a great deal of talk about his slaves and horses. In some sources it says that he had 1,000 slaves, and that the 1,000 slaves used to pay him land tax every day, but that none of this wealth entered his house because he used to give it all in charity. The famous Orientalist Will Durant put the figure at 10,000, saying Az-Zubayr owned 10,000 slaves and he added 1,000 horses. Of course, the smart Orientalist omitted the part that says that he gave the land tax of his slaves in charity. This report cannot stand up to the report of Bukhari, in which it says, when Az-Zubayr ibn al-Awwam radiallahu anhu was killed, he did not leave behind any dinar or dirham, but there was some land which included Al-Ghabba, 11 houses in Medina, 2 houses in Basra, a house in Kufa, and a house in Egypt. The report is clear and states that he did not have anything except those properties in the context of taking or of talking about the distress caused by the debt and the difficulties in seeking to pay it off. If there were 1,000 slaves, they would have been mentioned and their value estimated. Wasn't one slave worth at least 2,000 dirhams? In that case, the value of these slaves alone would have covered almost the entire debt. And that is if we assume that there were only 1,000. If we go along with the wild exaggeration of Will Durant, which suggested that these were 10,000 slaves, this would mean rejecting Bukhari's report completely, because 10,000 slaves and 1,000 horses, even if their price was low, would have been enough to pay off his debt and drown his heirs in a sea of wealth. Az-Zubayr ibn al-Awwam would not have needed to say to his son, "One of my greatest worries is my debt," or to ask him, open quote, "Do you think that what we owe will leave anything of our wealth," or to instruct him, "If you have any difficulty in doing so," meaning paying off the debt, "then seek the help from my master." Inshallah, we will end this one here at point number bulletin 1.9, page number 133. And this is volume 2, not volume 1. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك وتبارك اسم ربك وتعالى جدك ولا إله غيرك ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم. سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين. الحمد لله رب العالمين.